I never thought I'd be in this position. You spend 18 years raising your child, teaching them right from wrong, hoping they'll make good decisions. Then one day, your daughter walks through the door with a man who could literally be her father, and suddenly you're questioning everything. I'm Sophia Davis. My daughter Ava just turned 18 3 months ago, and for the past 2 months, she's been dating a 51-year-old man named Richard. I still remember the night she told me, her eyes defiant but pleading for acceptance all at once. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. It started innocuously enough. Ava mentioned she'd met someone at her part-time job at the bookstore downtown. She glowed when she talked about him, how intelligent he was, how he recommended books that changed her perspective, how he listened to her in a way no one else ever had. I was happy for her. After a rough patch in high school where she struggled with anxiety and self-confidence, it was wonderful to see my daughter blossoming. "He gets me, Mom," she said one evening, curled up on our living room couch, her dark hair falling across her face as she stared into her phone, smiling at whatever message had just come through. It's not like with the boys at school who just want to get in your pants, or who can't hold a conversation beyond video games. I nodded, pleased she seemed to have found someone thoughtful. "So, when do I get to meet this mystery man?" She tensed slightly, and I should have recognized that warning sign right then and there. "Soon," she promised. Soon arrived 3 weeks. Later, when I came home early from my shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse, and I've seen a lot of things, treated a lot of patients, witnessed a lot of trauma, but nothing prepared me for walking into my own kitchen to find my teenage daughter kissing a man with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines deeper than the Grand Canyon. They jumped apart when the door closed behind me, and I stood frozen, my nurse's bag slipping from my shoulder to hit the floor with a thud that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. "Mom!" Ava's voice was higher than normal. "You're home early." The man, Richard, had the decency to look uncomfortable. He straightened his posture, cleared his throat, and extended his hand. "Mrs. Davis, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Richard Montgomery." I didn't take his hand. I couldn't. All I could think was that this man had probably voted in elections before my daughter was even born. "Ava," I said, my voice measured and calm, the same tone I use when telling families that their loved ones need emergency surgery. "Could I speak with you in private, please?" What followed was our first real fight in years. Ava stormed into her bedroom after me, slamming the door so hard a framed photo of her at graduation fell from the wall. "You embarrassed me," she hissed, tears springing to her eyes. "Richard is important to me, and you couldn't even be civil." "Civil?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Ava, that man is old enough to be your father. More than old enough, actually." "Age is just a number," she fired back, and I had to stop myself from screaming because of course she would say that. Of course. It's what they all say, isn't it? It's not just a number. It's experience. It's power. It's a completely different stage of life. I was trying to keep my voice down, aware that Richard was probably still in our kitchen, likely hearing every word. What could you possibly have in common with him? Everything. She threw her hands up. He respects me. He values my opinions. He doesn't treat me like a child. Because he's romantically involved with you. That's the problem. You don't even know him, she countered, her voice breaking. You took one look and judged him. That's not fair. I took a deep breath and tried another approach. Honey, think about it. Why would a successful, established man in his 50s be interested in dating an 18-year-old? Why isn't he with someone his own age? The look she gave me was pure ice. Maybe because women his age are judgmental and close-minded. Maybe he appreciates that I'm not cynical and bitter yet. That stung. I won't pretend it didn't. I'm not trying to hurt you, I said more gently. I'm trying to protect you. I don't need protection. I need support. How do you respond to that? How do you tell your adult daughter, because legally, that's what she is now, that sometimes the people who most need protection are the ones who least believe they do? Richard left soon after. I heard murmured voices at the front door, then the sound of his car starting in our driveway. Ava didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. The next morning, I called my sister Claire. She's 5 years older than me, always the wise one, the steady one. A 51-year-old? Claire's shock came through the phone loud and clear. Sophia, that's not normal. That's predatory. I know, I sighed, keeping my voice down as I glanced toward Ava's bedroom door. But she's 18. Legally, I can't stop her. No, but you can make sure she knows you're there for her when this inevitably crashes and burns. Because it will, Soph. These things always do. I wasn't so sure. Ava had always been stubborn, determined. Once she set her mind to something, she rarely wavered. It was what made her such a good student, such a passionate advocate for causes she believed in. But now that determination was turned toward a relationship that made my skin crawl. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. 4. The next few weeks we existed in an uneasy truce. Ava spent more and more time with Richard, coming home late, texts lighting up her phone constantly. I tried to be subtle in my questioning, but every answer she gave only heightened my concerns. He owns his own business, she told me one night over a dinner she was barely touching. A tech consultancy. He works with major companies all over the country. That sounds impressive, I said carefully. Has he been married before? Ava pushed her food around her plate. Twice. But both were mistakes. His exes didn't understand his vision. Red flag. Every fiber of my being wanted to point out how classic that line was. The exes are always crazy or didn't understand him. But I bit my tongue. Pushing too hard would only drive her further away. And what about children? Does he have any? She hesitated. He has a son who's 23. They're not close. Another red flag. A man estranged from his adult son, now dating a teenager? The picture being painted wasn't pretty. Things came to a head about a month into their relationship. Ava announced she was going away for the weekend with Richard to his lake house. Just the two of them. Absolutely not, I said instantly, maternal instinct overriding my attempts at diplomacy. Mom, I'm 18. I'm telling you as a courtesy, not asking permission. You live under my roof, I reminded her, hating how parental cliches were suddenly spilling from my mouth. And while you do, you follow my rules. Then maybe I should move out, she shot back. The room fell silent. We both knew she wasn't financially prepared for that. She had a part-time job and savings for college, but not enough to support herself. Not yet. Unless, of course, Richard offered to help. The thought made me sick. Is that what he's suggesting? I asked quietly. That you move in with him? She looked away. We've discussed it, for after I start college. Ava. I moved to sit beside her on the couch. Honey, please listen to me. When I was 22, I dated a man who was 35. I thought it was wonderful that this sophisticated, established man wanted me. I thought it meant I was special, mature for my age. She looked at me then, surprise evident in her expression. I'd never told her this story before. What happened? She asked. 6 months in, I realized why he wasn't dating women his own age. Because they wouldn't put up with his controlling behavior, his subtle put-downs, the way he isolated me from friends who weren't good enough, or who didn't understand our connection. I took her hand. By the time I ended it, I hardly recognized myself anymore. Ava pulled her hand away. Richard isn't like that. You don't know him. You're right, I don't. So invite him over for dinner. Let me get to know him before you run off to a secluded cabin with him. She considered this, then nodded slowly. Fine. But you have to promise to give him a real chance. I agreed, and we set the dinner for the following night. I spent the day cleaning, cooking, and trying to calm my nerves. I wanted to be wrong about Richard. I wanted him to be the exception to the rule, to genuinely care for my daughter in a way that wasn't exploitative or manipulative. When the doorbell rang at exactly 7 o'clock, I took a deep breath and opened the door with what I hoped was a welcoming smile. Richard stood on my porch, dressed in an expensive-looking blazer, holding a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine. He was objectively handsome in that distinguished silver fox kind of way that some women go crazy for. I could see why Ava might be physically attracted to him. But the calculating look in his eyes as he assessed me and my home sent chills down my spine. Mrs. Davis, he said smoothly, thank you for the invitation. I've been looking forward to getting to know the woman who raised such an exceptional young lady. I accepted the flowers with a tight smile. Please, call me Sophia, and come in. Ava's just finishing getting ready. As I led him into the living room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very, very wrong. Not just the age difference, though, that remained deeply troubling. There was something else, something in the way he carried himself, the practiced charm that seemed to mask something colder underneath. What I didn't know then was that this dinner would reveal secrets about Richard that would turn our lives upside down, information that would force me to make the hardest decision of my parenting life. Because protecting your child sometimes means risking their hatred. And as I was about to discover, Richard Montgomery was hiding far more than I could have imagined. Dinner with Richard was a masterclass in manipulation. He arrived precisely on time, dressed impeccably, with practiced compliments and that bottle of wine that happened to be my favorite, something he'd clearly gotten Ava to tell him. Every gesture calculated, every response measured. This lasagna is exceptional, Sophia, he said, taking a small bite. Ava mentioned you rarely have time to cook with your demanding schedule at the hospital. I make time for important occasions, I replied, watching him carefully. Family has always been my priority. Something flickered across his face at the word family, discomfort perhaps or annoyance quickly masked. I filed it away, along with the way he subtly directed the conversation whenever I asked about his past. Ava was watching us like a tennis match, her eyes darting between us, clearly nervous. She laughed too loudly at his jokes, touched his arm too often, seeking his approval in ways that made my heart ache. My confident, independent daughter suddenly seemed smaller in his presence. Richard was telling me about his travel plans, Mom, Ava said brightly. He's taking me to Paris next month. I nearly choked on my wine. Paris? But what about your summer classes? You've been planning to get ahead on credits before fall semester. Richard smiled smoothly. Education comes in many forms, Sophia. I believe traveling abroad will broaden Ava's horizons far more than another semester in a classroom. It's just for 10 days, Ava added quickly. I've already worked it out with my advisor. I can make up the coursework. I set down my fork carefully. That's quite generous of you, Richard. Paris isn't cheap. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I can share experiences with people I care about, he replied, his hand covering Ava's on the table. Money is meant to be enjoyed, not hoarded. The implication hung in the air. I was the practical, cautious mother who would deny her daughter these opportunities. He was the generous benefactor who could give her the world. It was textbook. Really, yet so skillfully done that I could see Ava falling for it completely. After dinner, Ava helped clear the table while Richard insisted on pouring me another glass of wine. We moved to the living room, and somehow he engineered a moment alone with me while Ava was putting away leftovers. I understand your concerns, he said, lowering his voice. I would feel the same way if I were in your position. I appreciated his directness, at least. Would you? Would you really understand if a man your age was dating your teenage daughter? He didn't flinch. I don't have a daughter, but I do have a son, as Ava may have mentioned. He's 23 now. She mentioned you're not close. A shadow crossed his face. That's his choice, unfortunately. His mother poisoned him against me during our divorce. It's one of my greatest regrets. It sounded rehearsed, but there was something in his eyes, actual pain, or a convincing performance of it. With Richard, it was impossible to tell. I want you to know, he continued, that my intentions toward Ava are honorable. I know the age difference raises eyebrows, but when you connect with someone the way we have, those conventional boundaries seem meaningless. Richard, I said carefully, she's just starting her life. You've already lived so much of yours. She hasn't even decided on a major yet, and you're talking about taking her to Paris. Maybe I can help her find her path. I have connections, experience. That's exactly the problem, I interrupted. The power dynamic is completely unbalanced. Every decision she makes with you will be influenced by your position, your money, your life experience. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You underestimate your daughter. She's remarkably self-assured for her age. That's what attracted me to her in the first place. Before I could respond, Ava returned, and Richard's demeanor shifted instantly. More animated, less intense. A different person entirely. The rest of the evening passed in strained politeness. After Richard left with a chaste kiss to Ava's cheek, for my benefit, no doubt, my daughter turned to me expectantly. Well, you see, he's wonderful. I chose my words carefully. He's certainly charming. But you still don't approve, she said flatly. I'm still concerned, I corrected. He's talking about Paris, Ava. That's moving very quickly. She rolled her eyes. It's a trip, Mom, not a marriage proposal. I wanted to point out that expensive gifts and trips were classic grooming behaviors, but I knew she'd shut down completely if I used that term. Instead, I tried another approach. How about this? Before you go anywhere overseas with him, let me hire someone to do a background check. Are you serious? Her voice rose in disbelief. Completely. If everything is as perfect as it seems, you have nothing to worry about. But if there's anything concerning in his past, wouldn't you rather know now? This is insane, she muttered. You're treating him like a criminal. I'm treating him like what he is. A much older man with far more resources and power who has taken a sudden interest in my teenage daughter. She stormed off to her room, slamming the door yet again. But the seed was planted. The next morning, while Ava was in the shower, I did something I never thought I would do as a parent. I checked her phone. It felt like a violation, and maybe it was, but my instincts were screaming that something wasn't right. The messages between her and Richard were mostly innocent. Discussions about books, philosophical debates, plans for outings. But there were undertones that disturbed me. The way he positioned himself as her intellectual superior while simultaneously praising her for being different from other girls her age. How he subtly criticized her friends. His constant availability, responding to her texts at all hours, keeping her attention focused on him. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, sick with worry but with no smoking gun to present to Ava. Just troubling patterns that she was too inexperienced to recognize. That afternoon, I called Claire again and told her about the dinner and my growing concerns. I'm going to send you a link, she said after listening. There was a story in the news last year about a tech executive named Richard Montgomery who was sued by a former employee for sexual harassment. The case was settled out of court. My hands trembled as I opened the link she texted me. There he was, Ava's Richard, in a corporate headshot accompanying an article about the settlement. The woman who filed the suit had been 22, an intern at his company. She alleged that he had leveraged his position to pressure her into a relationship, then threatened her career when she wanted to end it. Oh, God, I whispered. God, I whispered. God. There's more, Claire said grimly. I did some digging. His first wife filed for divorce citing emotional abuse. The records are sealed, but I found an old blog she kept briefly after leaving him. Sophia, it's not good. By the time we hung up, I had a dossier of concerning information about Richard Montgomery. None of it was criminal. He'd never been charged with anything. But the pattern was unmistakable. Young women, power imbalances, manipulation, control. And now my daughter. Tried calling Ava, but her phone went straight to voicemail. When she hadn't come home by dinner, I texted her, trying to keep my tone casual. Everything okay? Dinner's ready whenever you are. Her response came an hour later. Staying at Richard's tonight. Don't wait up. My blood ran cold. She'd never stayed over at his place before, at least not that she'd told me about. I called her immediately, but she didn't pick up. I left a voicemail trying to sound calm. Ava, please call me back. I found some information about Richard that we need to discuss. It's important. I love you. Minutes later, my phone rang, but it wasn't Ava. It was Richard. Sophia, he said smoothly. Ava's in the shower. She asked me to call you back. I need to speak with my daughter, I said firmly. She's quite upset, he replied. She feels you don't trust her judgment. This isn't about trust. It's about your history with young women in your employ. It's about the lawsuit from the intern at your company. It's about your ex-wife's blog detailing your emotional abuse. A long silence followed. When he spoke again, his voice had lost its warmth. I see you've been busy. Did it occur to you that there are two sides to every story? That a failed marriage or a disgruntled employee might not present the most balanced view? Let me speak to Ava. Now. She doesn't want to talk right now. She needs space. If you don't put my daughter on the phone, I'm calling the police. It was an empty threat, and we both knew it. Ava was 18, legally an adult. She could stay wherever she wanted. Richard's laugh was cold. And tell them what? That your adult daughter is visiting her boyfriend? Don't embarrass yourself, Sophia. Ava will call you tomorrow when she's calmer. In the meantime, I suggest you reconsider your approach. Your accusations and interference are only pushing her closer to me. He hung up. I immediately tried Ava's phone again, then sent her a series of increasingly desperate texts. No response. I barely slept that night, alternating between rage, fear, and self-recrimination. Had I handled everything wrong? Should I have been more subtle in investigating Richard, less confrontational, more understanding of Ava's perspective? By morning, I was frantic. I was about to drive to Richard's address, which I'd found through a property records search, when my phone finally lit up with Ava's name. Mom? Her voice was small, hesitant. Ava, are you all right? Where are you? I'm fine. I'm still at Richard's. She paused. He told me what you said about him. My heart sank. Of course he'd gotten ahead of the story, shaped the narrative before she could hear the facts from me. Honey, I can show you the articles, the court records. He already showed me, she interrupted. He showed me everything. The lawsuit that was filed by a woman who was fired for incompetence and wanted revenge. The blog his ex wrote during their custody battle. He didn't hide anything. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. This was exactly what an experienced manipulator would do. Present the damaging information himself, but with his own spin, controlling the narrative completely. Ava, please come home so we can talk about this. Not yet. I need time to think. Her voice broke slightly. I love him, Mom, and he loves me. Honey, I know it feels that way, but… No, she cut me off. You don't know how it feels. You don't know him like I do. After we hung up, I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my phone, feeling completely helpless. Then I noticed a text from an unknown number. This is Jacob Montgomery, Richard's son. We need to talk about my father and your daughter. Meet me at Riverside Coffee at 2 p.m. My hands shook as I read it again. Richard's estranged son had found me. And whatever he had to say, I knew it would change everything. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, nervous energy making it impossible to sit still. When a young man in his early 20s approached my table, I knew immediately who he was. He had Richard's strong jawline and piercing eyes, but there was a wariness in his expression that spoke of deep wounds. "Mrs. Davis?" he asked. I nodded, gesturing to the chair across from me. "Thank you for reaching out, Jacob." He sat down, fidgeting with a paper napkin. "My father doesn't know I'm here. He'd be furious if he found out." "How did you know about Ava?" "He posts about her on his private Instagram, not her name, but..." I recognized the pattern, the comments about her old soul, how she's different from other girls her age. "It's the same things he said about Elise." I leaned forward. "Who's Elise?" Jacob's eyes met mine, and in them I saw a reflection of my own fear. The 19-year-old he was dating 2 years ago. Before her, it was Mia, who was 20, and before that, Kristen, who was 18. He took a deep breath. "My father has a type, Mrs. Davis, and a pattern." For the next hour, Jacob Montgomery unraveled the disturbing pattern of his father's relationships. Each story was eerily similar. Young women barely into adulthood, isolated from friends and family, lavished with gifts and promises, then discarded when they began to assert independence or question his authority. "It never lasts more than a year," Jacob explained, his voice hollow. "And it always ends the same way. They're left confused, often in debt, sometimes with their education or career derailed." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Because no one told Elise's parents, or Mia's, or any of the others." His eyes were haunted. "I tried once with Kristen. She didn't believe me, thought I was jealous or trying to sabotage my father's happiness. By the time she realized I was telling the truth, the damage was done." "How did you find me?" "Instagram. Your daughter tagged her location at your house once. It wasn't hard to find your name from there." He hesitated. "I don't usually get involved anymore, but..." He trailed off. "But what?" "Your daughter seems different. The way he talks about her, how quickly he's moving. I'm worried this time is more serious." A chill ran through me. "What do you mean?" "The Paris trip. It's not just a vacation. He's talking about having her move there with him. He's been looking at properties." My mind reeled. Move to Paris? Ava hadn't mentioned anything about moving. Just a 10-day trip. That can't be right. She's starting college in the fall. She has scholarships, plans. Jacob's smile was sad. "My father is very persuasive. He makes his dreams feel like yours." Thought about how Ava had changed in just 2 months. Her shifting priorities, her sudden interest in European art history, her dismissiveness toward the university program she'd once been so excited about. "What happened between you and your father?" I asked quietly. Jacob stared into his untouched coffee. "My mother fled with me when I was 12. She tried to tell people what he was like behind closed doors. But he was respected in the community, generous with charities. No one believed her." He looked up at me. "I didn't even believe her at first. I thought she was keeping me from him out of spite. It took years for me to see the truth." "And what is the truth, Jacob?" "My father doesn't love people. He collects them, then controls them, then discards them." He pulled out his phone, opened a folder, and slid it across the table. "These are messages from some of the women. I've been in contact with a few of them over the years. They've agreed you can reach out if you need to." I scrolled through the contact information, my heart growing heavier with each name. "Thank you for this." "There's something else," Jacob said, lowering his voice. My father keeps trophies. Trophies? From each relationship. Photos, videos, private conversations. He has a storage unit where he keeps physical items and encrypted cloud storage for digital content. My blood ran cold. Are you saying he documents everything, sometimes with consent, sometimes without. It's how he maintains control, even after the relationship ends. If they threaten to expose him, he threatens right back. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too public. I need to get Ava away from him. Be careful, Jacob warned. If he senses you're trying to interfere, he'll accelerate his plans. The Paris trip is scheduled for next week, not next month like he probably told Ava. Once he gets her out of the country. I didn't need him to finish the sentence. International boundaries would make everything more complicated. Distance would give him even more control. Why are you helping me? I asked as we prepared to leave. You're taking a risk reaching out like this. Jacob was quiet for a moment. Because I have a little sister. She lives with my mom in California. She's 16 now, and someday she might meet someone like my father. I hope if that happens, someone will be there to warn her mother too. We parted with a plan. Jacob would text his father, suggesting a reconciliation dinner the following night, something Richard had apparently been pushing for. It would give me a window of opportunity to speak with Ava alone, to show her the evidence I'd gathered, combined with Jacob's testimonials. It felt manipulative, setting a trap like this. But when dealing with a master manipulator, perhaps the normal rules had to be suspended. This wasn't about controlling Ava's life or choices anymore. It was about giving her the full picture before she made a decision that could alter the course of her future. That night, I prepared carefully. I printed out court documents, screenshots of conversations Jacob had shared, and contact information for Richard's previous girlfriends. I wrote Ava a letter, pouring my heart out in case she refused to listen to me speak. I even packed a bag with her passport and essential documents, ready for any scenario. When my phone rang at 9 p.m., I expected it to be Jacob confirming the dinner plans. Instead, it was Ava. Mom? Her voice was shaking. Can you come get me? Please? I grabbed my keys immediately. Where are you? At Richard's. But... Her voice dropped to a whisper. Don't come to the house. I'll meet you at the corner of his street, the intersection with the big oak tree. Are you safe? Did he hurt you? I'm okay. He's in the shower. Please hurry. I drove like a madwoman through the dark streets, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. When I reached the intersection, Ava was already there, a small backpack clutched to her chest, her face pale in the moonlight. She practically dove into the passenger seat. Drive, she urged. Please just drive. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. I didn't ask questions until we were several miles away, pulling into the parking lot of an all-night diner. Even then, I just turned to her and waited. I found something, she finally said, her voice small. I wasn't snooping, I swear. He asked me to find a document in his office while he was on a call. There was a folder on his desk labeled Paris. I thought it was about our trip. She unzipped her backpack with trembling hands and pulled out a manila folder. Inside were printouts of apartment listings in Paris, a draft of a lease agreement with both their names, and, most disturbingly, enrollment information for a small arts college in Montmartre, with forms partially filled out in Ava's name. He's been planning for us to move there, she whispered. Not just visit, move. He already put a deposit on an apartment. Oh, honey. I wanted to say I told you so, but I bit back the words. Did you confront him? She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. He said it was supposed to be a surprise, that he wanted to give me a fresh start away from negative influences. He meant you, Mom, and my friends. Anyone who questioned us. I took her hand. What else happened? When I got upset, he changed. It was like watching someone put on a mask in reverse. His eyes got cold, his voice got so quiet. She shuddered. He said I was being ungrateful, that most girls would kill for this opportunity. When I said I needed to think and wanted to call you, he took my phone. How did you call me then? I waited until he was in the shower and used his landline. I deleted the call from the history after. Pride flickered through me, my quick-thinking girl. Mom? There were other things in that folder. Photos of other girls, young girls, with dates on them going back years. Jacob was right. Trophies. I think I made a huge mistake, Ava whispered, looking smaller than I'd seen her in years. I thought he loved me for my mind, for being special. But I'm just the latest, aren't I? I pulled her into my arms, holding her as she cried. You're not the first person to be fooled by someone like Richard, and you won't be the last. How could I have been so stupid? She sobbed against my shoulder. You weren't stupid. You were targeted by someone with decades of practice at manipulation. Someone who knew exactly what to say, how to make you feel seen and valued. I stroked her hair. The important thing is that you saw through it before it went too far. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. What do we do now? He has a key to our house. I gave it to him last week. We'll stay in a hotel tonight and change. The lock's tomorrow, I said decisively. And then we'll figure out the rest. The rest turned out to be more complicated than I anticipated. The next day, the texts and calls from Richard began. First concerned, then cajoling, then angry, and finally threatening. He showed up at our house while the locksmith was still there. I called the police, who told him to leave but couldn't do much else. No laws had been broken. Then came the lawsuit threat. Richard claimed Ava had stolen documents from his office. It was a scare tactic, but an effective one. Ava was terrified of having to face him in court, of having their relationship scrutinized publicly. That's when Jacob stepped in again. He connected us with 3 of Richard's previous girlfriends, who shared eerily similar stories. One of them, Elise, had been keeping her own evidence, recordings of Richard's threats when she tried to leave him. Together, they painted a picture that no judge or jury could ignore. We never had to go to court. When Richard's lawyer realized how many women were willing to testify about his pattern of behavior, the lawsuit threat evaporated. The restraining order we filed went unchallenged. The healing process was slower. Ava struggled with shame, with anger at Richard, but sometimes at me too, for being right. For weeks, she jumped whenever her phone buzzed, terrified he had found a way to contact her despite being blocked on every platform. She decided to defer college for a semester, taking time to work through everything with a therapist who specialized in manipulative relationships. When she did start classes in the spring, it was with a new wariness, but also a new wisdom. As for me, I started a support group for parents of young adults in concerning relationships. Not to tell them how to control their children's lives, but to give them tools to open conversations, to recognize warning signs, to be a safe harbor rather than an opposing force. Jacob comes to dinner at our house sometimes now. He and Ava have developed a strange but healing friendship, bonded by their shared experience with Richard. He's pursuing a degree in psychology, hoping to understand and perhaps someday help others who grew up with parents like his father. Richard himself moved away 6 months after everything imploded. Last I heard, he'd relocated to Chicago. Sometimes I worry about the next young woman who will catch his eye, who will believe she's different from all the rest. But I can't save everyone. I could barely save my own daughter, and even then, she had to save herself in the end. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that you can't protect your adult children from every danger. You can't make their choices for them. But you can make sure they know that your love is unconditional, that your door is always open, that coming home is never a failure. Ava is 20 now. She's dating someone new, a kind-hearted engineering student her own age who treats her with genuine respect. Watching them together, I see what a healthy relationship looks like at that stage of life. Mutual discovery, shared growth, neither person holding all the power or knowledge. Sometimes, late at night, I still think about how close we came to disaster. How easily Richard might have succeeded in isolating Ava completely, in a foreign country, dependent on him for everything. The thought keeps me awake, even now. But then I remind myself of what actually happened. My daughter recognized the danger herself. She found the courage to call me, to leave, to rebuild, and in the end, that's the most important lesson I could have hoped she'd learn. That she is strong enough to save herself, wise enough to recognize when a relationship isn't right, and brave enough to walk away, no matter how much. It hurts. If you're a parent watching your child make choices that terrify you, remember this. Your job isn't to prevent them from making mistakes. It's to make sure they know you'll be there, without judgment, when they need you most. Sometimes, the hardest part of parenting isn't protecting your children from others. It's knowing when to step back and trust that the foundation you've built within them is strong enough to withstand the storms they must weather on their own. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.